And we are back.
We are back, my little bumblebees.
Doing the comfort thing.
Yes, very cozy today.
You moved your microphone.
Very cozy today.
There we go. We were not planning on recording, but I have some things that I want to work through, and I figured we could record it.
Okay.
We constantly tell people that you don't get to say you're a strong, independent woman because it simply means that you're being an adult.
Right.
So is it fair to say that when we tell a woman who's in her masculine that she should be in her feminine because when she's in her masculine, she's simply surviving?
I'm sorry, I need you to ask me that again.
When we tell a woman who's in her masculine that she needs to get into her feminine, and we use the term masculine and feminine energy in that sense, how is that any different? Because she's doing what she needs to survive. So you're adulting. Right. You are handling your shit. Right. And if that means that you have to be in your masculine, is it fair to call it that? Because we tell people if they're a strong, independent woman, they're an adult. Congratulations, you're an adult.
Right.
So if they're a woman who's handling their bills and living their life and in the boss bitch mode and providing, that they're simply being an adult.
Yes, I stand by. Yeah, they're an adult.
So we've created this whole dialogue.
Okay.
Not just us, but we are involved in that, where we've created this dialogue where we're playing into the masculine and feminine energies in a relationship. Because a man is supposed to provide, protect, and lead, and yet a lot of women fall into that role because they don't have somebody that's capable of doing so. And we refer to that as masculine or feminine.
Right.
So now I'm hung up on this whole thing. Is it fair to call it that? Because when in reality, you're doing what you need to do to survive. Does that make you masculine and feminine, or does it make you a fucking adult?
So I think when we are dealing with people who are of a, let's just say they're higher in their elevation with IQ, they understand. They don't beat on their chest and go, I'm an independent woman. They see past the bullshit society has and feminism has really pushed for when it comes to being that strong, independent woman. When it comes to... Now I'm really deep diving it because the women who beat on their chest and say I'm a strong, independent woman and I don't need a man, fuck all men, society doesn't need men, I believe that that's a trauma response tied into the survival. So...
It is a trauma response tied into their survival. However, they're regurgitating shit that they've heard other people say. Right. Because you don't hear men doing that. That's a narrative. But for it to be a thing where a woman is taking care of her family, let's say a single mom with an abandoned child who is doing everything that she has to do to provide for her family because the man has stepped out, that doesn't make her masculine. It makes her a mother. It makes her an adult. She's doing what she has to do to take care of her child. And we will say things because of the podcast. We have said that she's in her masculine because she's having to run the household and she's having to work full time and she's having to play both roles with the parent. Like,
I do believe that someone in that situation is in their masculine.
Why?
Because she has to take on the both roles. She has to run everything inside of the household and outside of the household.
Okay. So with that concept then, does that mean or not mean that we equate masculine to strength and feminine to weak?
No.
Why?
Why would we?
Because she's doing everything that a normal person would have to do to take care of her child. And we're calling it masculine. Because she's being a strong woman and doing whatever the fuck she has to do to survive.
I didn't say that was...
So you said that a woman in that role is that she is in her masculine.
Right, because she's a single mom.
Right, and she's doing all the things that she needs to do to survive, and that puts her in her masculine.
Well, I think because there's a child present, that specifically does kind of push her more into her masculine, especially if she has a son.
Okay, and then I asked you, so does that mean that masculine is strength and feminine is weak?
No.
Why? Why is that not the case? Because what she's doing is what normal people have to do to survive. So a single father who has to play house and fucking do all the things, take care of the dishes and make sure that his house is in order and still work and pick up his kids, that doesn't put him in the feminine.
Right.
That's still in his masculine. And the way that we define things and the way that we have been talking about them on the podcast has been masculine is strength and feminine is is weak based off of this fucking thing that I'm going through in my head for the last 3 days. Because it's not the same thing. Our masculine energies, hunt, kill, do the thing, versus nurture, provide.
Right.
It's not the same roles.
Well, it's not, but in today's society, masculine is nothing more than going to work for 60 to 80 hours a week, coming home and doing it again.
Yeah.
We don't hunt and provide and do all of that anymore. Right. So by today's standards, I do believe that a lot of women are in their masculine. And I do believe that a lot of men have been taken out of their masculine because we don't do the hunt and the provide and the basic primal human things.
So for you guys who have been watching this for the last 5 minutes, this has been 3 days of my brain.
Right.
And I'm trying to work through it. Instead of just having this conversation with you, we decided to record it. So this is going to be all over the place. Enjoy. I don't know if this will make it to anywhere other than Patreon, but if it makes it on YouTube, I'm sorry. So to your point, if that's the case, then there is no masculine. Because
why would you say there's no masculine?
Because if men are no longer in their masculine because they're not hunting, killing to provide, they're killing themselves to provide.
Right.
But for a woman to step into that role of motherhood, fatherhood, because of the man has abandoned her and she's living that life, she's not in her masculine either because she is also not hunting and killing to provide. She's killing herself to provide. So
holy shit.
In that mindset, we are just living in survival mode, right? Like the thing that makes masculine and feminine is the characteristics of a man: strength, warrior, father, right? Like those are things that I equate to being a man. Therefore, that makes it masculine. We have genetic differences between the two of us. Our brains do not operate the same way. We are logic brain thinkers. We don't even have the same emotional centers in our brain that you have. Men are not as nurturing as women are.
Right.
And people will argue that all they want. You know, you can call that a bad upbringing or whatever. We are not built the same. On a cellular level, we're not the same creatures. And for me to think of feminine, I think of the helper. I think of the nurturer, the person that I can lay on when I'm having a really bad fucking day that will just listen to me go through my shit. Mm-hmm. Like, men can do that, but we want to provide answers for it. Like if I come to you and I have a problem, I can just vent and get it out and go about my life, and there doesn't need to be a discussion. But when you come to me with a problem, I have to ask you, do you need to vent or do you want me to fix? Because I don't know what to do. My gut reaction is to go, let's problem solve. Let's get through this, because that's what we are trained to do. Mm-hmm. So I think that we have been wrong in stating masculine and feminine energies, because I don't think that that's really a thing anymore. The more I process all of this out and to call it those things, we are masking strength and weakness with masculine and feminine. And I think that's why so many people have a problem with you being a stay-at-home wife and in your feminine, because psychologically we equate that, at least to some base level, as a weakness.
I don't think I equate that at all to weakness.
You don't.
In the way that I present myself and the way that I speak about my life, I don't.
I mean, in speaking in masculine and feminine energy. I'm not saying you. I'm saying that when you think of feminine energy and living the stay-at-home wife life,
I think of the nurturing and the being present and taking care of the home.
Right.
I don't understand how that's weak.
Okay, so then when we have the emails come through and we tell people that women are in their masculine energy because they're having to do all the things that normal people have to do to survive in survival mode, and we want them to get back to their feminine energy, how is that any different than telling them strength versus weakness? I could be...
I don't think you can equate a single mom working 80 hours a week. Like, say she's a nurse and she's working 80 hours a week and she's a single mom with 2 kids. I don't see how her, like, having a man step in is going to make her... I don't understand the correlation to weak. If she changed her career field and was a stay-at-home mom, are you saying that would make her weaker? I don't understand.
I'm saying that we say that women who live those lives live in their masculine.
Right.
And we are trying to help push women back into their feminine.
So are you saying we're trying to make them weaker with the way that we say it? I don't understand. If
women write in an email like that and they're saying that they are living in their masculine because they have to be the provider and they have to live in their in survival mode to make sure that everything in their life is in order. And we are telling them that they are in their masculine. What they are doing is normal adult life shit. Right?
Right, so but everything is easier when you have a partner. And the masculine and feminine energies balance themselves out. If she is the only provider in the household, as we have said, the provider is the man. It's what men are built to do. So if we're looking at like 2 jars of liquid and we have to level those liquids out, her feminine energy is lower than the masculine is. So if a man comes in and they're able to balance each other out and he's able to take out of that masculine energy, she can rebalance out into the feminine. I don't.
So then what makes that feminine? Because if a single dad is doing all the roles that the mom would be doing, it does not make him feminine. We would never say you're in your feminine energy because you're a stay-at-home dad.
But they do.
I haven't heard that. I've never heard that phrase. I've never heard.
I've had men in my comments say that he gets called pussy and he's more womanized because he's a stay-at-home dad.
Which equates to what? Weakness.
Well, yeah, I'm viewed as a slave.
That's my point.
But being a stay-at-home mom isn't the only thing that can be done to make someone feminine.
I'm aware of that. But that's what I'm asking you. So what is the difference? We've already established the nurturing and the caretaking and things of that nature. But if a woman has to step into that role to do those things and she's in her masculine, and men step into the role of being a single father and having to do play dates and all of that shit that they do with the kids, nobody ever says you're in your feminine because he's still working and doing the things that woman would be doing to survive. So she could go into her masculine to step into that role to do the things that a normal surviving adult has to do, and we say she's in her masculine. But when a man does all of the things that he is supposed to be doing on top of doing the dad thing when there's no mom in the picture, we don't say he's in his feminine.
So I think it boils down to the hierarchy of a family. The man is the top of the household. He should be able to cover all of those kinds of things. He's not going to be able to love and nurture the way a woman does.
I agree. 100% I agree.
But if there is not a leader of that household, that co-pilot now has to step up into that pilot position. And if there is no training done before the head of the household left, like there's just panic and scrambling. So I think that a woman stepping into that provider role is stepping into that man role. And that does increase the masculine that they feel because there's more anger, more frustration, and we aren't, in my opinion, biologically built to handle the kind of stress that a man can.
Okay, that would speak on to emotional versus logic brain thinking, I think. Mm-hmm. I think that does come back to that point.
Yeah.
I have other things that I want to transition to, but I do think that on some level, and maybe this is just a me thing, that when we think of masculine versus feminine, we think of masculine. Mm-hmm. And then we think soft, dainty, feminine. And in a sense, there is a strong versus weak. And that's why chivalry existed. We have to defend those weaker than us. And if I'm a strong knight who slays dragons and kills the wicked, everyone is weaker than me, right? Especially the fairer gender who's dainty and is soft and is supposed to be nurturing and caring. Like, so on a base level, I think that's very much a thing. And I'm not saying that I agree with that. I think that that's just a very baseline way of putting it, because I think that women have strengths that men don't.
Right.
And I think that men have strengths that women don't, which is why we work so well together as a team to provide for a family. And when we don't have that, the team is disrupted. That balance is gone.
Right.
Then it is a balance. How about that? It's a balance.
It's a missing step.
Right. Okay. Because without that softness, you can't have the nurturing.
Right.
If you have a rough, calloused guy all the fucking time and something happens, you're going to get to put some fucking dirt on it. Let's go.
Right. He's not going to be he can handle all of it, but he's not going to do it in the loving way that a woman would.
Right. And she's never going to be able to handle the situations that need to be handled.
Right.
You know, I don't know how to word that, but with that, like, brashness, because sometimes that's necessary. And you can see it with the kids because we parent very differently. So, like, we can see the way that they affect each person differently.
Right.
When he's hurt, he runs to me. When he's angry and just needs to vent because he's 5 and doesn't know how to tell you what he's feeling, he runs to you.
Yeah.
So like there is a clear genetic understanding there, right? Okay. What was the other thing that I wanted to talk about with all of this? Okay, so on all of that, we have also said on the podcast, this is me taking accountability for what I think is wrong in the last year of our life, right? Because of the way that we're talking. I have been really obsessing over this.
Oh, I wish you said that.
Well, I wanted to process it out so that I could have an intelligent conversation with you, and I can't because I am at inner turmoil and conflict. There's a whole lot of other things going on that's got me fucked up. This has been like that background noise that I've been working through on top of everything else that's going on. So this is not what's been my mental issue. This has just been a thought.
Right. No, but knowing that you're taking accountability for things, that changes this conversation for me.
Well, I may not need to be. This could just be my thought process, and maybe I'm fucking wrong, and I need to hear another's opinion on it.
Okay.
I am by no means saying that my thought process is perfect. I am fucking damaged goods, and I get it. But if I'm wrong, I'm going to say I'm wrong, and I want a new thought process. So we have said over and over and over again that when you have a long-term relationship and you've got a really masculine man and a very feminine woman, that over time they become more center line, right? And we have to work to get back to that feminine and masculine because those energies balance each other, right? Okay, so we're on the same page there. Then we say things like, when men stop making the men decisions and stop making date nights and stop going, get dressed, we're going to get dinner. Yes, sir. Like, I'm gonna go get dressed and we're gonna have a fucking date night because now the conversation is, what do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want for dinner? I don't know. Pick something. You pick something.
Right.
There's not a masculine standpoint in that. And I'm gonna take it a step further, and it's probably gonna get me hate, but I'm gonna do it anyways.
Okay.
In a masculine standpoint, 50s, traditional marriage, whatever, and I'm like, I want steak and mashed potatoes tonight. And you're like, okay, I have set the standard, leading my house. This is what I want. I'm in my masculine, being demanding almost. You went in your feminine saying, yeah, I got you. I'm going to fucking make sure that belly's full tonight so that you can work tomorrow and we're going to work as a family, right? And in that scenario, most people don't see that as masculine and feminine, strong and weak, or balanced. They see it as a man being demanding and a woman submitting in a way that she shouldn't have to submit, right? Because that is a very normal thing that we see in the comment section all the time.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you. I really don't like that you keep equating femininity to weakness.
I know. I know.
Why are you doing that?
Because of the conversation. I don't like it either. I don't agree with it. I think that they are polar opposites, and that's the way that people are defining masculine and feminine.
In today's society?
Yes.
Okay.
Because if that wasn't the case, and a woman, single mother, was doing all the shit that she was doing, they wouldn't say she's in her masculine.
But I think it has to do with the brashness that a woman has to exhibit to be in that kind of role.
I disagree. Because if that's the case, that means masculinity is just asshole behavior.
It's not. There's a weatheredness to it. There is a... Why'd you shake your head?
I was waiting on you to finish.
You shook your head.
I disagree. I don't think that being weathered makes you an asshole.
I'm not saying it's an asshole thing.
But for the women who scream that, the way that they portray themselves, they are not nice women. I know a lot of men who are really good fucking dudes who are gentlemen.
Okay, well, I'm still stuck on the scenario you brought up of the single mom working. So if she's the person who's saying that, like being an asshole about it, I agree. So are we talking in that case, or are we talking like a real life scenario of a mom who's working her ass off to do...
Wouldn't that be the same thing?
It depends on their attitude.
Right. So in the event that they are not a brash asshole and they are just doing their life thing and they're surviving, they're not the ones beating their chest saying, I'm a strong, independent woman, I don't need no fucking man, because they don't act that way. A lady doesn't act that way, just like a gentleman doesn't display toxic masculinity.
Right.
Those behavioral traits are you're an asshole.
Right.
On both sides, but we label that as feminine and masculine. And when women go from being that lady to an asshole, we say that she's in her masculine. And that's viewed as strength. And society is viewing what femininity is, which is a beautiful, nurturing, mothering role, as weakness. Otherwise, they wouldn't say she's in her masculine.
Okay, so I'm gonna regurgitate this back to you and make sure I'm on the same page.
This is hard, right?
So you just said that the women that go from ladylike to the asshole, the beating on their chest, I'm a strong, independent woman, fuck all men, we don't need men in society. Have I said that those women are in their masculine, or have I just said that they're fucking traumatized?
We say that they're in their masculine. That they it could be trauma. It could be both. I know for a fact we've actually said both. That those are lived experience that has put her in her masculine to make her live that way, or whatever the case is. But we normally equate that to masculinity, and even if we don't do that all the time, society normally does. Which is why the conversation of feminine and masculine is so prevalent in our podcast. My opinion. Could be wrong. Working through shit. This is bullshit, right?
I'm processing a lot. So the definition of what masculine has not only been hijacked by like just men being violent or having like a superiority complex. It is now hijacked by women who are being assholes, given by the example of weak men. Okay, so I understand that.
So you get where I'm going. Okay.
Yes.
This sucks, right?
So, clarification. I do not think that is what masculinity is.
Right.
I think that those women are traumatized. I do believe that any woman who is a single mom providing household, even now in today's age with inflation and shit, women who are single living on their own, killing themselves, running themselves into the ground, are the final decision makers in their life. Yes, it is adulting. I do think that men are better equipped to handle that adulting though.
Okay.
So I do think that there is a masculine. There is a higher.
See?
I know. I don't want to say like a higher masculine. There is an energy there that does lean more towards like if we're on a fucking dial here, like it's going a little bit more this way because you guys are equipped to handle those high stress situations and be snap decision makers. Not saying that women can't do that. I work pretty well under pressure in certain situations.
Okay.
I think out of the two of us, you are more of the apex predator than I am.
I agree with that.
When it comes down to it, and you have more apt survival skills on the basic primal level. So in today's day and age, when we're not being chased by saber-toothed tigers and the threat of death is around every single corner, we have adapted to a softer threat. And that softer threat is our government.
And our lack of that's a whole fucking that's a whole different work through, babe. Okay, so then let me hit you with a scenario.
Okay.
If little man fell and scraped his knee riding his bike and came running and bleeding, freaking the fuck out.
Right.
And I grab a spray bottle and some gauze and I medically treat him.
Right.
Get him back up to standard and get him back out on his bike. In that moment, I am nurturing. You're okay, bud. It's just a little bit of blood. Like,
yes.
I'm leaning more into what people would call that feminine. But in that moment, am I truly being feminine or am I simply taking care of my son?
Are you just being a human?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm being an adult. The kid is hurt. He needs to be taken care of. That doesn't make me feminine.
What the fuck have you been listening to?
Nothing.
Okay, hang on. I need a second. This is a lot. Okay. I feel like we need to make a chart of basic human survival skills. And then from there, we can derive what is truly masculine and what is truly feminine and where those things can start to bleed into one another, right, and what is just basic fucking human function. Right. I'm very uncomfortable right now and I want to delete every episode we've ever made.
Okay, so let me hit you a different one then.
Okay.
We've watched Vikings.
Yes.
Lagatha is a shield maiden.
Yes.
But she's also a mother and a wife.
Mm-hmm.
and she's very soft when she's not in battle to everyone because she is a good woman.
Right.
So when she's in battle and she's fucking murking people, does that make her a masculine woman because she's killing people in battle? Or is she still a wife and a mother who just happens to have a skill set where she can fucking swing swords and kill people? Does that make her masculine in that moment? Because if so, we equate masculinity to strength and violence and the ability to kill. Because if that's the case, then nobody's masculine.
I'm going to hit you with another scenario. Queen Catherine Medici was known for poisoning people.
Yep, she's a murderer.
She was a murderer.
But we also know that poison is a women's weapon.
Right. That is one of the top ways that women will murder people because it's not messy, it's not violent.
It's safe.
It's safe. It's incognito. And back in the olden days, majority of women were herbalists. They had home apothecaries. Like that was what they were known for. So it was slick as shit.
So are you saying that women murderers who use poison is feminine? They're killing people with femininity?
Well, is it more
feminine? Femininity?
But is it more feminine because it's not the bloody battle cries and bludgeoning with battle axes? Right.
This is a lot.
I would say that that's more feminine way of unaliving people. I'm going to be honest. Like, because it's that softer, less violent, less confrontational approach. Fuck. But can we say that the Viking woman who's out there
just murking people with a hatchet, who we have seen through the entire show as a mother and a wife and a cook and a queen, who steps out onto the battlefield and just fucking slays people because she's good at it?
Do you think because of her position and power as queen, even though she's a queen, I'm fucking going down a rabbit hole. Do you think because she's in a position of power over people, that kind of puts her more into a masculine role in the eyes of the people?
So does that equate masculinity to the ability to lead? Because if that's the case, most men aren't masculine.
Right. But that makes sense for her to be able to go out and just murk people the way she does, because with the responsibility of power that way comes a lot of stress.
Okay.
And the bigger the stress, I believe the bigger outlet that you need. And what's a bigger outlet? I mean, you're running a fucking village, a country, whatever you're doing. We're going to war? Word. Fuck Kyle, bro. Like, this is a lot.
It is a lot. And maybe it's just because I'm not super intelligent. I don't know how to work and word things. And I'm sure that I'm going to get ripped apart in the comments over all of this. I, again, am stating clearly that I don't think that weakness is equated to femininity. I think there are traits that make a woman feminine.
Right. That can be viewed as weakness if taken advantage by a foul person.
Right. I don't think that. I think that this is why I don't believe in toxic masculinity.
Right.
You're either an asshole or you're not. The things that make you masculine, I think, are more physical traits, right? Like, we are stronger than you are. We are physically capable of doing a whole lot of shit that you can't. The ability to problem solve, logic brain thinking is very different than yours. When you guys get emotional, you handle things a whole lot differently than we do when we're calm and logic thinking. I think those things tend to lead to what makes men and women different, not necessarily masculine and feminine. I think that we just label it as such. Masculine traits. He's got a strong jawline. He's got a masculine jawline. Woman can have a masculine jawline too. Like, lady, you've been taking way too much steroids.
I think we also attribute masculine and feminine to stupid shit.
I agree.
Like inanimate objects and...
Well, I mean, you can look at language.
But that makes sense.
Why? Why does that make sense?
In English.
In French, when you were trying to teach me certain aspects of French, there's rules in French that we don't have in English.
Right.
We actually don't. It's probably, I think, the only language on the planet that doesn't
have male and female pronouns in the language.
Right. So, the usage, the words are pronounced differently and spelled differently depending on, but there have been like.
So it depends. It depends on what the word is, and it depends on who's saying it. If a man is speaking and he's talking about another man, he's going to use the male pronouns of the words.
For like person, right?
Right. So if he's talking about his brother and he's like, my brother owns a car.
Right. Well, wouldn't brother be that male pronoun? Because it's brother. But the word for family member might change. I don't remember I did like 3 weeks of Duolingo. I don't remember any of that shit. So I'm way wrong right now. And I know that. But like, why is that a thing? This masculine and feminine shit that we have been like harping on, I understand the baseline of it, and it is a way to help people understand what we're trying to get at. But I think that it's wrong.
Why is it wrong? What's wrong? What have we done that's wrong?
Because when we tell women who are running the household and they have an indecisive man who is more concerned about hobbies and drinking and downtime and escapisms, that she is in her masculine and she has to find a good man to get back into her feminine. And like, if she finds that leader of men and that good man, that she will regress back into who she's supposed to be as a woman. Why is that a thing?
What do you mean? Why is that a thing? Because they balance out each other.
Right.
So,
but the term, she's in her masculine.
Right.
She's adulting. She's picking up the slack where he's no longer doing his job. If a man is doing all of those things and still doing the normal life shit, we don't ever say he's in his feminine. We call him a piece of shit. We say he's not worth it. He's lazy. He's escapism.
Well,
he's using porn. Like, he's not.
Because I think it's harder for men to go into that feminine role. The masculine role is the top role to get into. I think women who are single and by themselves can still be Why are you smirking?
So are you equating masculinity to strength?
To leadership. That's what God said, bro. Like,
oh man, I hate this.
So there has to be a masculine and there has to be a feminine energy. It doesn't matter who that energy is.
Why?
Because there is male and there is female. This is how the Roman Empire went down. We're doing too much. That is really how, this is one of the contributing reasons to the Roman. I am obsessed with the Roman Empire before it even fucking became a thing.
Way more than I do, apparently.
I do. So one of the downfalls of the Roman Empire is that they became so cushiony within their lives that they started bickering about useless shit like gender.
Okay. So, okay. What do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want for dinner?
Because now we have options.
Right. But, well, now that Roman downfall is happening in your marriage. Because you don't have somebody there to lead. But when we say the lead, you just said that it's masculine.
I do believe it's more of a masculine role, yes.
Why? Right? Because there's nothing there that says, there's nothing about any of that. Like, if you have a bunch of men together, not every man that's in that tribe is going to be a leader.
There's going to be one.
That motherfucker, and then everybody else is his subordinates.
Right. It happens in groups of women. There will always be that one woman who is the lead of that group.
Right, but that doesn't make her masculine. It makes her the leader of that group. It makes her more capable of survival than everyone else in the group. So when you have a man that's leading a bunch of men, he has an experience that those other men do not have, or a capability, or he has just not been tested by that new motherfucker to put him in place yet. And we call him a leader because he's earned the right to lead.
Okay.
This is what my brain has been doing for 3 fucking days.
So in the scenario of the group of women, there is a hierarchy. There is always going to be a hierarchy when there is a group of anything.
Right.
And you're right. That leader of women is not viewed as masculine. She is viewed as being the most capable. Is she most capable though? I mean,
until a bigger, stronger threat comes along.
But there's also groups of mean girls, the women whose sole survival is gossip,
right,
and bullshitting. But that's not feminine to me.
Okay.
That I don't.
So would that be masculine because it's an asshole thing to do?
I would say that it falls. No, I would say that you are leaning more towards that ambiguous, the floating in between, like in a marriage when they get so close together, you can't tell which is which. I think that is that ambiguous energy where you are so out of balance, fucking all over the spindle thing.
See, I see that as a weakness. That gossip and shit and like the mean girl club and like the frail men, male feminists. I see them the same way.
But that's on the lower end of the masculinity scale. Okay, so now if we're looking at this as a fucking like pH balance scale, we have the strong feminine over here on this end and the strong masculine on this end.
Right. And when those two meet and become a team.
Well, right, when those two meet. Okay, so now it's a fucking circle.
Hold on. So when those two meet and they combine forces to be an unstoppable wrecking force, Ragnar and Lagatha.
Right.
Someone has to be in charge there.
Right.
Because two people can't lead a dance.
Correct.
So one has to submit at some point to the other person's whim somehow. Mm-hmm. Whether it's her submitting every time to him or him going, okay, she's a herbalist, she knows medicine. Mm. Or in like JJ and Danielle's case, Danielle's a spiritual leader of their house. Like there has to be some sort of submission, ebb and flow to keep that because now they're a power couple, right?
Right.
Does him submitting to her spiritual lead make him feminine, or to her herbal information make him feminine because he's able to recognize that there is a strength and an ability to lead in this moment that is going to make them a force to be reckoned with?
Well, that's them playing to their strengths within their roles.
Okay.
So with Danielle being the spiritual leader of the household, I don't think that is a masculine thing. That is something that
biblically men are supposed to lead their household spiritually.
Right.
So how is that not a masculine thing? This is my problem. This is fucking stupid.
Okay, we'll pause. Fucking stop. Everybody don't move.
The world is everybody stop. Nobody move.
I have my own relationship with God, and you have your own relationship with God. Biblically, yes, the man is supposed to be the spiritual leader, but that also goes into that like the hierarchy of the household, that masculine role. The male role is at the top of the household.
Okay, so this saying male versus masculine is two different things.
I just fucking lost what I was going to say because he said something.
Sorry. Sorry. You said in that aspect, biblically, the male is supposed to be is supposed to have that role.
I know. I'm trying to remember where I was going with it.
Okay.
It's gone.
This is a lot, right? And I'm sure it's very simple. And I'm sure that somebody else can explain it in a very simple manner. And I probably still wouldn't get it and would probably still make the argument that I'm making because I am having a hard time wrapping my hands around all of this.
Do you think that you are having a hard time wrapping your mind around all of this because of today's climate?
Yes.
In society?
Yes.
100%. Because of everything being questioned. Vast majority of people can't define what a woman is. Oh. I mean, of course we can.
We just choose not to because they're afraid of getting canceled.
Right. Woman's born with a uterus, labia. Men, prostate. I don't know the anatomical term, but I'm just going to say ball sack.
It's a bag of holding. I do think that a lot of this comes down to how far we have stretched terminology for things because the words no longer have the meaning that they once had. And I'm going to pull up the definition of masculine so that we can have that discussion. Pull up feminine, please.
Okay.
All right. So masculine is having qualities or an appearance traditionally associated with men or boys. In grammar, it's of or denoting a gender of nouns and adjectives conventionally regarded as male. And then the noun version of it is the male sex or gender.
Feminine is defined as having qualities or an appearance traditionally associated with women or girls. Grammar, of or denoting a gender of nouns and adjectives conventionally regarded as female. And then used in a sentence as a noun, the female sex or gender, the association of the arts with the feminine.
Okay, so you get an extra thing in yours because arts is now considered feminine as well. So if you're an artist,
the arts of the feminine. So like arts of a geisha. Like
okay.
That artistic feminine trait, not trait, but the thing
things that men aren't supposed to be doing.
Right.
It said qualities on both of those definitions, right?
Right, qualities.
So is it a appearance quality, or is there a behavioral quality? Right? Like, because we are adding terminology to these things and making up words to basically say that masculinity is strong and like the lack of masculinity is weak, because we say that. I say that. When men write in and they're like, or women write in and are like, he uses escapism and he doesn't want to work, that's weak to me.
But that's not feminine.
He's not a masculine motherfucker. Like, masculine men lead, they protect, they provide.
Right. So,
but you got to have both. If you're not masculine, you have to be feminine. There's not a.
Well, I disagree with that. I would say that falls more into that ambiguous limbo. If he is doing escapism and he's not doing the shit he needs to do to be that motherfucker, that's not a feminine thing. Anybody can do escapism, but he's on that lower end scale of masculine. He's that weak masculine, or I would say the ambiguous, can't be defined because... Okay, so I pulled up quality.
Okay.
And this is going to help me with what I'm trying to say. The standard of something as measured against other things of a similar kind. So humankind, we are all human beings.
Right.
So male measured against female, you can measure those two things, right? We can tell anatomically that we are not the same. So just quality of female versus male human beings, there's already a difference. Feminine body shape, masculine look. Naturally, just naturally, you guys are built more muscular than we are.
Strength.
Okay.
This sucks, right? Because even in your own definition, women have obviously removing the goody bits.
Right.
Right? You are praised when you're dainty. You're supposed to have big body parts where there's no muscle. Right? And men are supposed to be chiseled abs, big dad bods, strong men. We're used to picking up bags of concrete and carrying buck fucking 400 miles after a kill, and like your job is to get it from the kitchen to the table so that we can pray and eat, and you're supposed to help nurture the kids. When you look at those things, societal definitions of those things are the opposites.
Right.
But when a man is not that man and he's considered weak, we will never say he's in his feminine. I have never said he's in his feminine. I've always just called him a pussy or called him weak. So maybe this is a me problem, because I don't look at anything that you do as weakness. I've said it over and over on the podcast. If it wasn't for you, I couldn't do the things that I did. We are a team. And by your definition, when you have two fucking leaders that come together, one, you got a fucking power dynamic now. There's still going to be submission.
Right.
I submit to you all the time and you submit to me all the time. We try to make a balance in our home to be the best that we can fucking be. And sometimes we're like two rams butting head trying to figure out who's going to win this show of dominance, right? Or establish that strength in the moment. But that does come down to strength. And when we speak of women who are in their feminine being the boss bitch or boss babe or whatever you want to call that, they're always assholes.
Right.
I would like to use a different term, but if I use the feminine term for that, I'm now being sexist by calling them a bitch or a see you next Tuesday. So asshole is the term I'm using because apparently that's gender fluid.
Okay.
But that shouldn't be a thing, because I would have a lot more respect for a woman who's in her feminine who leads like that, because she's still playing to her strengths and not being a fuckface. Just like I respect men who lead by their quality and not being a fuckface. Leading through fear is not leadership.
I'm going to interrupt you. So I agree. Women like myself, now in my position in life, I am leading in my feminine.
Okay. Explain that.
So the best way I can explain it is how I'm able to control my emotions. When I was... I'm trying to figure out how I want to word this. Fuck you and your logic. Because now I really can't even say when I was a single mom and I was working 80 hours a week and I was killing myself and running myself into the ground. Can I say that I was in my masculine? I do feel like that I was more in my masculine because I was the final decision maker. Everything rested on my shoulders. Childcare, getting food on the table, cooking the food, like getting the food to the table in my mind is equated to a masculine role. That is, in my mind, the man's job.
Get it to the house, you mean?
To get it to the house. So I was doing that. And because that was one of those masculine roles in my mind that I had to take on, that I was resenting life. So I was short-tempered. I was always angry. I was not an understanding person. I was super combative to everybody in my life. I felt like a caged animal trying to fight for its life. Just fucking angry at everything, spitting venom.
And that's from an emotional mindset. That's
the emotional mindset of it. And I think that boiled down to that I didn't have a teammate. So say just by myself, I have 20 roles that I have to do inside the household. I am now taking on an additional 20 roles outside of the household that my teammate could be doing. And I want to do the feminine datey shit in the household. And I guess you could say masculine really boils down to what the woman would need from her man. Because me going out and working 80 hours a week in a job that I hate working outside of the house. I do. But there are women out there who love working outside of the house, and that works nothing for them because they're busybodies and it keeps the mind occupied. And they're thriving in that role, and they're still in their feminine, and they're able to be the dainty and non-combative person and whatever. If their man needs to take care of the lawn and that's something that they can take off of their shoulders, they have now eliminated that masculine role for themselves. Or the man has eliminated that masculine role for them.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you think that men do the same thing?
What do you mean?
That when we have to cook for ourselves and do all of those things and not be mothered by a woman and we are living on our own, because that's what people say, oh, you got to cook him dinner. What are you, his mother? Right?
Right.
So in that scenario, because that's a negative connotation of what feminine and masculinity actually is, but in the situation where if I was a single man and I was working to do my empire and I still had to feed myself and do dishes and do all of that stuff that men don't normally do in like a gender role traditional marriage, do you think that I would be upset and angry and pounding my chest that I'm a fucking strong, independent adult because I can cook for myself and do all of these things on my own? I think that in your argument, or what you said, not argument, in your explanation and what my explanation is, I think that it comes down to purpose, because men long a purpose. When we're living that life, we want that companionship, and it's not for booty. It's because we want something to work for, right? I'm dealing with somebody right now in my life who doesn't have vision for himself. He believes that he's just working to die. He doesn't see the long game. He doesn't see the end of everything. He's living for other people and he's not satiated.
Right.
But when you give a man a purpose and he's living for other people and he's thriving and doing the things that, because I believe provision is a masculine trait, right? As much as I disagree with that now that I'm going through that, I've always said that.
Okay, so now you disagree with
that?
I
do, because you provide. My job is to get the food to the house. Yours is to get it to the table. Is there any difference in the two things now? Because I'm not hunting it. I'm going to the grocery store. I'm fucking Instacarting.
I'm going to be honest. I was just sitting here going, I fucking hate this conversation.
Yeah, so do I.
If you were to ask somebody this in the 1400s, like, what the fuck do you mean? I go out, I hunt the food, I drag the shit back, I gut it, I skin it, and my wife cooks it, and she takes care of the children.
See the frustration that you're feeling right now? Your tone and your inflection just changed. Are you and your masculine in the moment?
You fucker. You fucker.
This has been my brain for 3 fucking days.
This is stupid.
It is stupid.
I cannot believe that this is where we're at as a society. That this is the shit that we can sit down and debate.
I mean, I don't really think it's a debate. I'm just trying to understand.
But people do debate this.
Mm-hmm.
People debate that a man who went through a male puberty is the same thing as a biological woman if he decides that he's a woman.
So, just to wrap this up, because they're going to be here in like 10 minutes to do the window, do you think that masculine and femininity simply comes down to gender roles? Because that, at the end of the day, is how we have always explained them across the board. Pink jobs, blue jobs.
I don't think it boils down to roles. I think it boils down to characteristics and how people choose to present themselves to the world. Because there are feminine men out there. And oh God, I fucking hate I went back to today's society. And because our lives are so cushiony and everybody in the world is so fucking privileged, not everybody in the world, there are still people in third world countries who are fighting for survival, but vast majority of people in America, Japan. Okay, so the point of all of that was, in America specifically, we are so fucking privileged to sit down, and these are the conversations that people are having, trying to figure out whether an emotion is masculine or feminine.
This doesn't feel like a privilege to me. This feels like a disadvantage, a disservice. This feels
like de-evolution.
De-evolution. This feels problematic to me that we have to have a conversation. We don't have to. I'm just trying to better understand, because if somebody else writes in and says that, you know, I'm in my masculine and I want to be in my feminine, how do I help my husband get into his masculine so that I can be in my feminine? You're in survival mode, bro. Like, you have somebody that's not capable of leading the way that you need to be led.
Right.
Therefore, you have to step up and play that role. And for men who want a dominant woman to lead because they are not in their masculine, as we just explained all of that, they're considered fucking being mommied and all of that shit, and the women become resentful for it. Like, you're not meant to be with everybody. If everybody was just meant to mesh very well, we wouldn't have relationships. We'd just run around fucking everything and everybody would love each other and we would all be in one big relationship.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. And I think that people try to stay in survival mode with somebody that's making them miserable and saying that they're in their masculine or feminine is that's a problem. You're in survival mode. It's not the same fucking thing. Maybe the real issue is you have not found somebody that you are capable of being 100% authentic with, to be in what you view as your feminine, for them to be in what they view as their masculine, and you two to be a fucking powerhouse. I quit.
I am going to stand on the hill that this is a conversation that I think privileged people get to have.
Yeah.
Because there are people having conversations on where they're going to find their next meal. Or we're not going to make rent this month. How are we going to make rent happen? How are we going to make sure the kids have food next week? If this is the conversation that people are sitting down and having on repeat, this is the thing that you're fighting for, to blur the lines between masculine and feminine, you need a reality check.
With that being said, guys, hope you enjoyed this nonsense.
I hated it.
Yeah.
I think it was a lot of decent conversation. I think I hate where society is going.
Same. Absolutely same.
I'm nauseous.
We'll see you guys on the next one.
Bye, guys.